some ideas to manage our biases. And before I do that, I would like to offer you an example. Because indeed, many attempts have been made to try to stop the effect of some of these biases. And a good example, I mean, I happen to like music, even classical music. And on January 1st of every year, it is a tradition in my house to have the New Year's concert from Vienna, played by the famous Philharmonic of Vienna. Now, it so happens that the Vienna Philharmonic banned female musicians until as late as 1997, which is not long ago, and it only allowed female people to join for permanent positions after much pressure from the Austrian government and also from public opinion. And by the way, it was the same for non-European ethnicities. So if you were a man but you happen to be Asian, I'm sorry, yeah, but you were also still, out of luck. So after this, was discarded, and they said, we should stop being, so old-fashioned. And of course, there was some resistance because some Austrian sociologists claim that, typically European male musicians and soloists were uniquely gifted to play classical music. And if you don't believe me, I'll send you the quotes, but they're quite interesting to read. Huh? So what did they do? They decided to change their hiring processes and said, much like the blind CV in the, promoted by the French government a few years ago. So they did blind auditions. And everybody was happy, congratulating one another, thinking, oh, wow, this, we just entered the 21st century with this. No one could ever say to us that we are this bunch of old-fashioned, racist guys and and hating women, etc., etc. But what happened? That there was absolutely no effect. So the blind audition, in case you are not familiar with it, is when the musician plays behind the curtain, and still women were not selected. And that was considered by some, with another bias called the confirmation bias, as proof that indeed women were not as gifted as their male counterparts when it came to classical music. Okay, I don't know if you can, if you already have in your mind, because we had a very clever audience today. Why do you think this was the case? Why did blind auditions not stop this gender bias from happening? Why were women still not selected, despite the fact that they were not seen when they were performing, in the auditions? Any guess? Any wild guess?
We have some clever ideas.
So far.
They were coming in wearing high heels and made a different sound.
Okay, some people have been. Let me ask you, Matthew. Only one person answered that, or
well, two
percentage? How many of the answers were right?
We got some interesting one. Different approach to music, which is fascinating. That's worth exploring on. So we've had 2 out of about 7 were mentioning the footfall. It's very interesting. Actually, what is interesting is the other answers. The volume of the music, the way they were playing the music. So it's almost the other answers are as equally fascinating. So we've got some, there's a variety of stuff coming in. The names were shown.
The names were shown. Okay, no, the names were not shown.
Interpretation of music.
The passion, maybe, or the emotional.
Yeah.
The emotions that were put into it. No.
Choice of pieces. There's some great stuff. The selection of pieces. Very interesting.
Selection of pieces to perform. Interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. Well, again, 2 out of 7, is still a minority, as it usually happens in diversity. The minority is usually, has some part of the truth that the majority does not. So yes, indeed, it took them a long time to figure out why. They had to call in some external experts. So it was not intuitive, it was not quick, and it did cost them some money to figure out why this was so. It was indeed the fact that the tapping of female shoes was slightly different. But this was not verbalized or mentioned by the people in the selecting committee because they were not aware of it. They hadn't noticed. So again, unconscious at play. Is this about saying, they were horrible people, horrible guys, and they were on purpose trying to exclude these poor women? No. It was something that happened to them without noticing.